It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, July 16th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is having more of our talk with JJ today.
Awesome.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. You can find our show over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we're starting to get some of the early returns in on the weekly poll on your favorite ex-Flyers player turned broadcaster. Now we're looking at your favorite broadcaster from those ex-Flyers players, not really necessarily your favorite player of the bunch.
Right.
So think about it that way. The link for that poll is in the show notes. It's on our YouTube channel. So looking forward to talking about that. In the meantime, Garnet Hathaway spoke about his new contract with the Flyers. And it's really interesting. We talked about it at the time, but hearing directly from him on why now when he still had a year left, right?
Yeah. So apparently they were talking about this, during last summer about extending him. And so, they probably took a wait and see approach. He fit well at the team. Is he being paid too much for my taste? Yeah, he is. But he's a favorite of John Tortorella, and I'm sure John had input with this. And even if Danny was like, "Hey, I only want to give him 1 year," he wasn't going to, disappoint John. That is the dynamic right now. Like it or not, that is the dynamic. So, look, he's a good penalty killer. He really isn't a third liner. Like that's when Danny says that, he's just being nice because he did play some during some tough times, but he's not. He's a really good fourth liner, but he's not a high offensive guy anymore. He's a good penalty killer and he'll fight. And it's a high price. Like everybody told me, Russ, don't worry about Delorier. It's only 1.5. It's not going to matter. Well, it's been mattering, right? It's been mattering for a couple of years now. This could matter too, because hey, I think it's good that he starts off with Michkov and everything else, but after a couple of years, there's going to be young guys knocking on the door, and now you're going to have a salary here that's going to be hard to move because you'll have a guy that has a little more salary than other teams want to pay for that role.
Yeah, I think, I thought it was too soon, but from his perspective, I totally get it. He has
Oh, I get
a
it from him,
young,
sure.
growing family. He wants some stability. Makes sense. He does have a role, and I think that this team has emphasized character and being a team player in this rebuild a lot.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot of what led to this contract extension. And I think it just remains to be seen. It was a wait and see deal for this year for him, and I think now it's on us. We're going to wait and see if this pans out as something that has been useful for the organization or not. And I think we're not going to know until 2 years from now, right?
I think because there's this year and then it's 2 more years, it's 3 years from now, and at 32 with the role he plays, you're risking it. You're risking at least a year
Well,
of Nick Delorier type play. You are.
I say 2 years from now because that's when I feel like some of the bigger deals and the bigger moves are gonna have to happen, and will his contract be in the way of that? That's
Okay.
why
Okay.
that's why I
And
say that.
I do think it will be in the way. I do.
Yeah, and, could be. We'll wait and see, I
You know,
think. I think there are some good things, and I do think he's
there
he's a
are.
great guy.
He is
So,
a great guy. Nobody's going to ever deny that.
Yeah, I'm glad he's around the team. Another bit of small news per Sam Wismer, Adam Brooks is going to play in Germany next year, so he will not be back with the Phantoms. I think that's okay with the signings they have made
Yeah,
and the fact
they'll
that,
be okay.
yeah, they'll be
It's
fine.
it's it's hard not to make the playoffs. We have to be honest about that, and I don't think he's gonna tilt it one way or the other.
No, that is true. All right. We have so much more from our conversation with Jim Jackson that we started on yesterday's show. If you haven't listened, go back and do that. But on today's show, we have him talking about working with Brian Boucher, Keith Jones making the jump to the front office, changes in hockey over the years, his development camp observations, so much more. So we're going to get to that coming up right now.
And people ask me for my favorite call, and I'm never hardly a minimalist. I've grown up with this radio call, so I'm calling everything. The one time I could actually think about it and be a minimalist was when Bush made the save on Jokinen to win the shootout against the
Oh,
Rangers
yeah.
in 2010.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I knew what was happening, right? It's a shootout, so it's a pretty planned play. He's going to go in, he's going to shoot, he's either going to score, he's going to get stopped. So I could kind of plan it, what I would say or whatever. So in that one, just, Boucher save and the Flyers are, going to the playoffs. It was just, I like that call. It's probably my favorite call, not for the excitement level or for the event.
Right,
It
but
was
you were
pretty
probably
big,
too nice
but I
to
was
make
happy with myself. I'm rarely happy with myself. When I watch my own
Oh.
calls,
Okay.
I usually hate them. But that one was like, hey, I kind of laid out, I kind of let
Yeah.
the game. And again, you can do that a little bit in a shootout, whereas in the game, it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's so random because the
Okay.
puck's bouncing all over the place. You're just trying to react to it. A shootout's kind of one instance in hockey where you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. So
Were you nice on air though to Bush when he won that game, because he kind of screwed up his own celebration, and he's
he
talking
did.
about that.
I didn't know that though. He didn't. He told me that he was trying to imitate Lundqvist, and
Right.
he wiped out.
And he wiped out.
It's so now that I know Bush, it's so him to try to stick it to
Right.
Henrik by imitating his celebration, but it's also kind of like Bush to screw it up.
Right.
It's,
Right.
It was great. I mean, Bush is awesome to work with. He's he's funny. I think he's outstanding. He's concise. Great pipes. He knows the game. And for me, it's been great because I never worked with a goalie before. So I'm getting perspectives that I've never gotten, that I never even thought of. I mean, after he says them, I go, yeah, that makes sense. But I had never really thought of it. And so it's been fun to work with a goalie on an everyday basis. I might have worked with a goalie on some national games here and there, but not consistently, to get that perspective. And it's been fun. I mean, he's like I said, he's also, as you guys know, he's a master impersonator.
Oh yeah.
He can impersonate anybody and often does. I'm sure he has one of me. He doesn't usually impersonate the person to them. So I'm sure he has one of me, but I haven't heard it yet. But he's really great to work with. So we've had a lot of fun there, and so he can get in and out. Back to the original point,
Right.
but I do think the pace. You need to demonstrate the pace of this game, because hockey is such a fast game. I mean, how many times have you guys heard when a fan goes to a game for the first time, and especially if they sit in the lower bowl? Wow, I can't believe how fast that is.
All the time.
On TV, as much as I'm on TV and I'm supposed to try to help this along, we can't really do that part of it justice, because the game looks a lot easier on TV than it really is.
Yeah. You mentioned the goalie perspective. I am 100% believe that if a player is going to go into broadcasting, goalies have the best perspective, because they watched plays develop their whole careers. And so they understand the flow of it better than almost anybody out there. And they don't leave the ice either. So
That's right.
They understand the ebbs and flows of the game better than almost anybody. So that's why I prefer, if a player is going to go into the booth, it should be a goalie.
Well, a lot of them do. What do you got? John Davidson way back when, Darren Payne, go down on Darren Elliott, Brian Hayward. There's a lot
I think it's
of
like catchers. I think it's like catchers in baseball. I think catchers in baseball, same thing. They see things. They're smart.
Absolutely.
You had like Garagiola, McCarver. There was so many.
Yeah. And both positions, you're crazy if you play them. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is also true.
Fully true.
All right. We'll have more with JJ coming up next.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate is to not search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed's your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy because you can avoid all that busy work. I use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. So just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
On tomorrow's show, we are anticipating the arrival of the new Fanatics jerseys. We've seen the example of it, but not really so much in person of what the actual
Right.
jerseys are going to look like. But to get ready for that, we're going to look back at all the Flyers jerseys over the years and our favorites, and maybe one stinker in the bunch.
Yeah, that's good.
That
That's
we have. We'll get to all of that and more. Plus, we're going to be answering your mailbag questions, so get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on Twitter, or comment over on YouTube. Here's more with JJ. You also talked about getting to know Bouch over this season, but like your former partner, Keith Jones, obviously making the transition to the front office. Like, what was it like for you just adjusting to Jonesy being in the front office? And then do you think it brought out any different aspects of his personality?
Well, yeah, he's a different Keith Jones when he's in the president persona, I guess, but he's really still the Keith Jones. Like, he travels, goes on just about every trip, and when he's around the plane, the bus, the hotel, the rink, he's the same Jonesy. And you know what that means? He's
He's a
he's
goofball.
getting on somebody. He's breaking, So that's just Jonesy. So he hasn't changed in that way. He's the same person. The adjustment is tough though, because for 17 years, he was my guy. Whenever anything happened, even if it wasn't Flyers related, anything in the NHL happened, instant text. We'd shoot a text back and forth, and he'd give me his opinion, and I'd give him mine. Not that he cared to get mine, but I'd throw it out there. And, I can't really do that now because I don't want to bother him. He also, if it's about the Flyers, he can't really talk to me. So, it's that our relationship changed that way a little bit because there's just not as much contact. He's probably happy about it, but so it was a little bit different. But he's still the same Keith Jones. It's not to say he's changed. It's just I can't text him anytime. I also know from being in the booth with him for 17 years how he sees the game. He's really, really, what I think you're starting to see now, because it comes out now in his current role, maybe even more than when he was on the air, is how astute he is at judging this game. I could sit with Jonesy at a morning skate and I'd watch and I'd see the drills. And to me, it's like, this is boring. I'm not really seeing much. He could spot stuff, a guy's skating stride. He's not right.
Yeah.
A guy who not comfortable in his skates. Guy doesn't like his gloves. Goalie who's just a little off. There's just all these things he could spot. And he picks up on stuff like that. And he's also extremely astute at team building. He's always been very, very, he's really wanted to be very careful about when you're building a team. It's not going to be all superstars. It's not going to be all skilled guys. You have to have the guys that do the support work. He's always thought that. It's almost always borne out every playoff year. So I think he's very astute in a lot of ways. He's made a lot of money off of his humor because he is a funny guy. He's so quick. Bad pun jokes, but his real quick jokes are amazing. He's so quick. If you listen to him when he was on the radio in the morning show, just so quick. So that's kind of what got him attention. But beneath all that, if you look beneath the humor, is a really smart hockey person. And I think he's going to really take this organization to the right spot, especially not just him. I think Danny Briere's another guy who looks like a choir boy, is a bulldog, and he's also very smart. And Dan Hilferty at the top I can't have enough good words for what he's done in terms of bringing energy back in and not just doing it in front of cameras. This guy came by our booth every single game to wish us a good broadcast last year at home. Great. And if he was on the road,
that was really cool.
I mean, he's just a hands-on. So those three, Torch is the coach, but those three above him, I just think they really know what they're doing, and I think they're going to take this organization to a really good place.
Yeah. I think, one of the other kind of changes that's happened over the years is the increased use of technology. And I'm just wondering how that's affected how you call a game in terms of numbers you have available to you, at the drop of a hat, or replay technology, or all of that. How has that affected how you call a game?
Replay technology, to start, is unbelievable. I know on any deflected goal that it's stupid for me to even guess, because we are going to get that super slow look that will definitively tell us eventually who scored the goal. Case in point, the last goal the Flyers scored in that game against Washington was a shot, if you remember, from the point. And Eric Johnson was in front, Couturier was cutting in front, and Farabee was kind of cutting there and then going off to the right. So the shot's taken, the puck's deflected. I knew it was deflected. It goes in. I usually go, because you can't, from as high up as we are, really see who deflects it most times. So I usually go by who's celebrating the hardest. All three guys went crazy. I mean, Cooch was doing this. Johnson's in the corner doing this. Farabee's behind the net waving his arms. And for some reason, Farabee jumped out at me first. So I said his name first, but then I realized he could not have been in front because he was already behind the net. And I said, and Couturier was there as well. I neglected to look along the boards where Johnson was going crazy. So I never said Johnson. He eventually was given credit for the goal. I was vindicated because it was a double deflection. Couturier deflected it first, Johnson second. So, I mean, there's no way you can see that live.
No.
But on the super slow, sure as you know what, there it was. You can see it. So that technology, Rachel, is great because eventually gives us the right answer. But for us play-by-play guys, we know if we guess on these deflections, they're going to prove us wrong a lot of times. So I try to hedge more on those deflections now. But as far as the numbers, we are now, because we have stat services and NHL stats, we can get any answer to pretty much any question within minutes, if not seconds, which is great. There's also, the NHL has brought in all these numbers this year. I don't get into them too heavily calling the game, how fast the guy is skating, but the technology is so good, it appears on the screen. The fans at home see the miles per hour on a shot now sometimes. So the technology's gotten to the point now where I don't have to worry about it too much. It's there for you. You see it in terms of that. So that's good. I think it's good, but I also think when you're getting into numbers, you don't want to go overboard either. It's still, the game's about scoring goals and stopping goals. So you gotta, as an announcer, I gotta keep my eye on the prize. That's really what it's about. If a guy's going, 26 miles an hour or 21 miles an hour, ultimately, eventually, not going to change the outcome of the game as far as I'm concerned. So, but it is great. Like when Owen Tippett, I don't know if you guys remember, not the rush where he scored on the Spinorama backhand, which was an incredible goal, but he had a rush late in regulation in another game right around that time where he picked up the puck in the, we were looking at the game, he was going left to right. He picked it up in the left corner and he knew he was up against the clock and he just set sail for the other zone. He's so fast. We found out he was going 26 or 25 miles an hour or something, some ridiculous number. So it's neat to be able to put a number to something like that.
He wound up with the fastest speed burst in the NHL of the season.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it was that one, because he had the puck too, which we see, and McDavid's the same way. McDavid almost looks faster with the puck than without it somehow.
Yeah, there's that game speed that some players have, and they're faster with the puck.
Yeah, but the burst is with the puck, right? It's not. You have to have the puck to get that burst. So it might have been it, because I call it turbocharge. Sometimes I'll say it before he starts because he's fun to watch when he gets going like that. So, but yeah, so the numbers, there's a lot of them. There's clearly a thirst for that with the fans. Fans now have access to all this stuff. So bring it on. It's all good. As long as technology doesn't get to the point where they replace the play-by-play voice with AI, then we're going too far with technology for my liking. And believe me, with Al Michaels now doing updates from the Olympics, but it's not really Al Michaels, we're not that far away from this. So I do, one of my side hustles is I narrate audiobooks and do voiceover work, and I'm losing work now to AI because it's just cheap.
Wow.
I mean, people can just get a fake voice and it can sound, it's not quite the same yet, but I have no doubt with the technology, they're going to make it better and better and better to where it will be exact. They'll have Morgan Freeman doing their book if they want it.
Yeah, none of my books are in audiobooks, but if I ever do one, I'm going to you.
I appreciate that. I would like that. I love audiobooks. I do because I read, right? I'm a reader. I'm a information hound. I love to get information on anything. And I said, well, if I'm going to read, why don't I make a little money off of it? And I'll read and tape it and send it to the person. So that's what I do. I'm doing one right now on gardening, which I know nothing about.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, because some of the chapters, the actual scientific names of these plants are in it.
Oh, wow.
So I have to look up these,
like Phalaenopsis or something like that.
It is, I never knew lavender was this and basil was called this in reality. Some of these easy names, right? I said, I have no problem. I can say cucumbers and carrots and corn, and I can say all that stuff. Well, all these things have scientific names and they use them in the book. And it's like, okay. So anyhow, you don't know what you're getting into all the time with these books, but it's fun. I'm learning about gardening. I like to learn about things. So it's a fun thing, but AI is definitely infiltrated there. And I don't know if they could ever use it to call a game, because you're processing. I don't know how they could get something
I doubt it.
See it and then call it that fast. I don't, but who knows with technology? I mean, these robots are starting to look pretty realistic. So who knows?
We will wrap up with JJ coming up next. The other change I think that's been happening is, like, I feel like there's been this generational shift, and in hockey, I find that it's micro generations, like the turnover between style of play and attitude, preparation, all that changes pretty quickly. But like since the bubble, really, I feel like there's a little bit of a different generation of young players. But I'm curious if you see that,
and what you've seen, how they play or how they act,
how they play, how they act. All of it.
I mean, I definitely see, just in society in general, and I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 23-year-old son, so I can go by them and their friends and so forth, that generation, what is it, that generation called? Gen
Z? I don't know.
I think it's Gen Z. I'm losing track. Millennial, I lose track. But anyhow, that generation, which is kind of going to become known as the pandemic generation in terms of they went through it during their high school, college years, seems to me to be a generation that asks a lot of questions and demands respect. And I see that in the young athletes coming in. So coaches no longer can be, the dictatorial coaches.
Right.
They just can't. They have to be coaches that are willing to share information with these players and treat them more as an equal. And I think you're seeing that. I mean, John Tortorella is as tough as they come, but he also is very willing to talk with players as far as what he uses is his hammer, obviously, is ice time.
Right.
But and he'll yell, obviously, in practice. We've all seen that.
Oh, yeah.
But he'll also very much open up, and he cares about his players. So he has that going for him. But the new players, the young players, do have that. So I've noticed that change. In terms of on the ice, I mean, I don't know if I see much. It's still, they come in with way more skill than they used to, but I don't know if that has anything to do with the generation, or it just has to do with the fact that they see so much more now at young ages. They see these things on YouTube and they start trying to imitate them at 9.
Well, how about this, Jim? I mean, there's fourth liners in this league now that could pick the upper right corner, where maybe 15 years ago that wasn't true.
Yeah. Oh, more skill for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to equate it to as recently as the pandemic and the generational change. And I don't know if I've spotted that yet, Rachel, but I will say that, yeah, the skill level is going up and up and up. The fourth line used to just be a grind line, if not just a goon line. No longer. You need skill up and down your lineup. Obviously, skilled defensemen are now at a premium. A defenseman now can do what forwards did 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago.
Right. And that goes to what I'm talking about, because I am firmly an advocate of getting rid of positions for skaters. I think everybody should be a rover. And I feel like
that would make for interesting defensive coverage, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I feel like
that.
Forwards have a lot of defensive responsibility. Like you said, there's a lot of offensive defensemen that aren't known for defense at all. Right. And so that's where I feel like it's kind of becoming a mushy middle in terms of what is a center, what is a winger. I feel like that's
no
changing.
doubt there is a mushy middle in terms of the defenseman, because it's all about getting that fourth man up on the rush now. But the responsibility is now falling on the forwards to recognize when that happens and get back.
Right.
So yeah, you maybe in that sense, they're all kind of, it's certainly not like it used to be, right? Defense would skate up to the blue line, forwards would go in, defense stay back. It's never going to be like that again. And the players can skate better than they used to. So they're able to move up and then get back. I mean, you watch Cale Makar, as amazing as it is to watch him go up on the play, watch him get back. It's just incredible.
Incredible
what these guys can do. So, I see that, Rachel, for sure. I think that, how many forwards now are flat out one wing or just centers? They end up, and you see wingers taking points off with centers on the ice now, and depending on the side of the ice. And so, absolutely, there is kind of, as with all sports. I mean, football used to have 11 set positions, and those 11 would play. Well, now it's like 17 to 18 to 20 players play regularly on the offense, shifting in and out as on defense. And so I think with all sports, it's becoming more specialized in terms of specific talents being used, but it's also led to positions, the roles not being quite as hard and fast. Except the goalies. The goalies are still the goalies.
Yes, goalies are definitely.
Although they're playing the puck more than ever, so I guess even that has changed.
They're getting pulled earlier, so.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Waugh brought that in as far as pulling him. If you're talking about pulling him for the extra attacker, he kind of brought that in his first tour of duty in the NHL, and it has certainly caught on. And John Cooper certainly seems to love it. True. So it's exciting. Leads to higher score. Everyone talking about how scoring is up. That's one of the big reasons why scoring is up. There's a lot more empty net goals, but the game, in my opinion, is in a great place. I like it. There's old school people who say it's not physical enough. I disagree. There aren't as many hits, maybe, but there are still some hellacious hits, even within the rules. I mean, watch Jacob Trouba play. He walks that line, but a lot of them are legal hits under the rules. You can still throw big hits, and I think we see a lot of big hits still. And so I think that physicality is still there. Not as much as before, certainly not as much fighting, but they're still fighting. It's still a physical game. You cannot be a coward and play this game.
No.
So I like that about our game. And then the speed and skill has never been better. The goaltending, where there might be a slight drop off over the last 2 or 3 years, just in terms of the numbers, save percentage numbers, I really, truly believe that has more to do with what you were talking about, Russ. The skill level of the forwards has just gotten so much better, because you look at the goalies now, how athletic they are, the saves they make, the way they handle the puck. I mean, just look back to a tape 25 years ago. The goalies look a lot bigger and better now. So,
although we don't have the time now, I think some goalies are being betrayed by the RVH, but that's a whole other show.
That is, but that's true. And that's that, and if it's not just the RVH, it's just the stand-up mentality in general. But everything's cyclical. I think that might come back around, and maybe we're seeing the hint of it now. I saw a couple goalies in the playoffs toward the end after getting burned by the RVH that they weren't doing it anymore. So, but then you can do what Connor McDavid did. If you saw that in the finals, where the goalie didn't get, was it Bob or was it Stolarz? I can't remember anymore.
Might have been Bob.
Might have been the game Bob was pulled and Stolarz was already in. But anyhow, where it was Bob. Yeah. And he kind of didn't go into the RVH, and McDavid right away went down low. So it's interesting. The players adjust, the goalies adjust, then the forwards adjust, and it's a great game. It really is. And I think it's in a super spot. So great time for the Flyers to get better.
Yeah. And speaking of looking toward the future, you were at development camp. Like, what stood out to you the most there?
Two things, not surprising to anybody. Luchenko can fly. He's going to have to get stronger. Got knocked off the puck some, but man, I mean, when you went there and you didn't, they had, thankfully, in the last 2 or 3 years, they put numbers in the backs of players at dev camp. That's awesome. I wish they do it in training camp too.
Oh yeah, me too.
But it's and they might. I think they did do it in training camp. Was it last year or the year before?
They did do it last year.
Yeah. So it helps everybody. But anyhow, if they'd taken the numbers off and the names off, you would have been able to tell who Luchenko was, because he was so easily the fastest player there. I mean, he just floats on his skate. And then when it came to the scrimmage, his you can see his intelligence. I mean, he read plays, made a play at the blue line where I can't remember who gave him the puck, but he gave him the puck in a really bad spot. He had a guy coming right at him who was right in on, and he just made this subtle little touch pass, which sprung a break, which ended up in a goal. He's just a really smart, fast player. And if you take a fast player and you put smarts with it, you can work on getting him stronger. That comes with time and comes with work and on his part. I think he could be a really good player. I think that might turn out to be a really good pick. The other guy is the guy the Flyers have been touting forever, is Hunter McDonald. I mean, the guy is, when a puck goes into his corner, the play's over. I mean, he just ends the play. And you hear that from coaches all the time about how valuable those players are. Mm-hmm. He also showed me that he can move a little bit for a guy
he's a good skater.
Not a bad skater. So I wouldn't be shocked if he sees some time in the NHL this year, Hunter McDonald. So those are the two guys. Noah Powell's a great story. And after talking with him, you just can't help but root for this kid. And you get that sense he's got that little it factor about him, that he's going to make it work. He's going to find a way. And Oliver Bonk, who, by the way, was excellent. That's kind of just Oliver Bonk. I mean, he's going to be a really good player. So there are others. I don't want to run through all of them, but I thought it was a good camp. I mean, you can't tell. The one thing about Dev Camp is we sit there and we analyze, and it's not really for that. It's to get these guys into the NHL format, indoctrinate them, show them a little bit about what NHL life is like, and just get them out there. It's not really that much evaluation.
Yeah, they're teaching them skills to do throughout the year, and we're just watching them for a short period. Yeah,
for sure. But in saying that, even Keith Jones, Danny Briere, John Tortorella, they're up there on the perch.
Oh, sure.
And they noticed what Luchenko did. They noticed what McDonald did. They know those things do. I remember last year, Emil Andre was the star of development camp. I think that really helped get him that chance he had, which it turned out he might have been, in over his head. But that stuck with Torts. I think it stuck with everybody how good he was. He dominated Dev Camp. In the preseason, he was okay, but he didn't dominate, but he still got a chance to make the big club. So I think Hunter McDonald, totally different kind of player, but I think he might have done the same thing. I think he might be one of the first call-ups if a stay-at-home guy gets hurt, if Nick Steeler or Rasmus Ristolainen or somebody is out of the lineup. I think he might be one of the first, although you got to give Ginning a try. There's other guys there. They've got some depth on D as far as guys to look at, but Hunter McDonald certainly has to be in the mix now. He just looks so big, and he's another guy who, when he talks, I think he's like 28. He's very mature for his age. Yeah. So he could be a real good late round pick for the Flyers for sure.
Excellent. Well, JJ, thank you so much for joining us. This was tremendous. Always good to talk to you and catch you around the rink in Voorhees.
Always fun talking hockey, even when it's 95 out. And I'm about ready to go dive into my pool, which has become a hot tub. But it's, I mean, it's at Dev Camp, it was fun to watch hockey. It was like 90 outside, right? And but now it's pretty much, we're in the middle of 2 months off. And I don't think much is going to happen off the ice outside of Mishkov's arrival, and I'm not sure if he's going to arrive much before camp or not.
I agree. I think it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah. So it's going to be 2 months of, not much hockey. So I'm always willing to talk hockey when there's time to talk.
All right. Thanks once again to Jim Jackson for taking the time to talk to us. Such a fun conversation. And it's just always nice to hear his voice. It just makes me think of Flyers hockey all the time.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. we definitely learned some things. I mean, I've known him for many years and I still learned some things. So it was nice that he was really open and
Absolutely.
honest about his career, and he's had a heck of a career and it's still going. So, congrats to him, but really thanks for doing it, because I think the fans are really enjoying it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that'll do it for today's show. As a reminder, you can get those mailbag questions in on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. Email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day.